Beware of spoilers, you have been warned. Dune is a remake of the original movie from 1984. From what I heard of that film, I can tell you right now that this latest adaptation of the beloved book is much better. Thank you, CinemaSins. Honestly, what stands out to me is how much time we spend learning about the intricate, established fictional universe. A film like this is at a risk of breaking the show don't tell rule in filmmaking, but I'd say they did a good job with that. We're told some important facts via narration and the National Geographic documentaries Paul watches, but we see for ourselves what the political climate is, like in this world, through the eyes of Paul and a few other characters. Not everyone would be too attracted to the slow burn that world building can be, but for the people that are able to watch the extended Lord of the Rings trilogy in one sitting, like myself, this movie is a walk in the park. I, for one, knew very little about Dune and the story. I was very captivated by the world design and wanted to learn as much as I can. I was completely immersed and interested and confused throughout as we reached closer and closer to the climax of the movie. Throwing out some compliments to technical aspects of the film, overall, it's a great film in the eyes of a filmmaker. It was filmed well and the CGI was top-notch as expected. The costumes and beautiful world and set designs were immersive and brought the cultures of the universe to life. The music, it was good. Loved it. But if you heard screaming, it was probably 100 bagpipes blowing in your ear. Thank you, Hans Zimmer. The music was often the key to bringing intensity to the film and definitely kept my attention to this long movie. The length of the movie is long, but I'm not really sure what I'd cut out because it felt like the movie needed every scene, or at least a newcomer like myself did, to grasp the full concept of the story and characters. Before I really knew what Dune was, I was initially drawn to the film by the stellar cast. Timothée Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Oscar Isaac, Jason Momoa, Josh Brolin, Dave Bautista, Zendaya, Sharon Duncan Brewster, and Stellan Skarsgård. Yep, Stellan was definitely in this movie. They all gave excellent performances, and Chalamet was a great lead. This is a movie about a grand universe that should be celebrated by all sci-fi fans. Overall, I'm interested enough to see the next film, which is coming out real soon. I think there's already a trailer I gotta watch it. I will be waiting patiently for part 2 at the end of the year, and I'm sure it's gonna be more action-packed given a full-out war is upon us, it seems. So maybe not the slow burn world building expected, but amazing and well choreographed fights? Yeah, possibly.
Dune Part 2. Wow, this met expectations and then some. I know a movie is good when I keep commenting about how good the technical aspects are, which I don't do as often as I should. The use of lighting and shadow, coloring, cinematography, costume and set design, all the pieces are put together perfectly once again to make this a beautiful, immersive, cinematic experience. This world feels so lived in. The use of fictional languages with amazing line delivery by the actors goes such a long way. The music was amazing and really felt like a character on its own. Its power to create tension and emotion is the purpose of a good soundtrack, but some movies do it better than others. Thanks, Hans Zimmer. And the cast: Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Javier Bardem, Rebecca Ferguson, Austin Butler, Dave Bautista, Florence Pugh, Léa Seydoux, and even Christopher Walken and Stellan Skarsgård. The on-screen talent is astronomical and equally as impressive as the off-screen talent. This was film at its finest. Dune will certainly snag Academy Awards for many of the technical achievements, for sure. The story overall was surprisingly easier to follow. Part 1 did a decent job cramming much lore to us as Paul's journey was beginning. With less setup, we were able to roll right into Part 2 seamlessly and got right to the main plot. Knowing there is a Part 3, I'm quite curious as to where Paul is going. I vaguely remember details of the original book and film. I'll be happily surprised, as I hardly remember anything. I get so much Lelouch v. Britannia vibes with Paul towards the end. If you've seen Code Geass, you might know what I mean. Overall, this was such a great movie experience as the first film. It did not feel like 2+ hours at all, and I need Part 3 as soon as possible. Last week, I covered my original thoughts of the original Hunter x Hunter anime, but this show of the week is the Hunter x Hunter remake, and let me tell you, the remake is so much better. First of all, going through the exam was so nostalgic and just made me really happy. Seeing the OG squad again, Trick Tower, the Hunger Games, like all exactly as I remember. They cut out the original shipwreck phase for some reason. I really liked that phase of the exam, so I was a little upset by this. I also think they cut out a lot of fluff because I swear the Hunter exam arc was several episodes shorter than it originally was. That seems to be the trend for the remake, as I've noticed some other plot points cut throughout the remade episodes. But at the end of the day, the cuts did not harm the story or pacing overall. Dare I say, improved it. It was also great seeing Gon take Hisoka's badge again. That triumphant feeling hyped me up all the way to the Heaven's Arena arc, which, again, seemed mostly exactly the same and still equally enjoyable, even though it felt shorter. Between the exam and the arena was the Zoldyck family arc, which I think they actually cut too much. I don't know, it just felt really short, and I rather enjoyed it the first time around. But I guess because we kind of revisit the Zoldicks in later episodes, maybe they just felt that this choice was right. I don't know. Then we get to York New City. This is when the plot really picks up. We are introduced to the spiders and chaos ensues. I went back and skipped through the final episode of the original anime. The original anime ended right after the Zoldicks fought Krollo. Kurapika obtained the Scarlet Eyes and then reunited with his friends. And that's it. Comparing my disappointment to the moment I realized I was actually seeing new content. Whew, I finally made it. The fact that the original anime just ended in the middle of the arc like that made me realize just how thankful we should all be that they decided to come back to the series. And as for the York New City arc, how it ends, the Spiders 3 members down, Frollo unable to use Nen, this is no longer a remake, this is new content. This is Hunter x Hunter, the definitive version. Greed Island. So, not only did the original anime end in the middle of what ends up being my favorite arc, but literally nothing came out of Gon's search for his father. While the spiders' action was picking up in York New City, Gon literally spent episodes looking for his father. Needless to say, the Greed Island arc was very satisfying. I don't have much to say, honestly. I enjoyed it like everything else, but I don't have any strong opinions about it. I really enjoyed Hisoka's scenes here, most of all. It was a bit of a letdown when Gon did all of that to beat the game and still didn't get to see his dad, but I knew there were a lot of episodes left, so I didn't mind. However, the Chimera Ant arc, it's literally a third of the series, and I am not all for it. The story had a strong beginning and a strong end. There were definitely some phenomenal moments, but overall, a weak story to me. There were definitely episodes where there was too much talking, and I feel like the great pacing is lost as this arc just feels like it drags and drags on forever. It was great to hear Ben Diskin as Knuckle. Yeah, that's a voice I haven't heard him use before. And the chairman's final blow, when I realized it wasn't for nothing, and he indeed sacrificed himself to end the war, dang. I mean, that was good stuff. The thing is, if this Chimera Ant arc was its own anime, I probably would have enjoyed it way, way more. But Gon and Kahlua felt like side characters, and this whole arc just didn't feel like Hunter x Hunter. I found myself bored and was ready to move on. And what the heck, Gon? That final move that effed him up was such an anime thing to happen. I just rolled my eyes and accepted it, but boy oh boy, I had no idea what greatness that moment would lead to. A new era. Once the Chimera Ant arc was concluded, the chairman election was the new main focus. We got a new intro, and suddenly the show was Hunter x Hunter again, and I knew I would love it. It literally blows my mind how the energy shifted just from that first new intro. This is the one that shows off the Zodiacs and Kalua's possessed sister. Hisako and Leorio are in it as well. Like, it just made me really hyped, and I was once again hooked. Hunter x Hunter was back. I cannot gush about the Zoldyck arc enough, so believe me when I say the concept and story of Aluka and Nanika was one of the most interesting tales in the entire anime. I'd love to know more of the origins of Nanika, but alas, it still remains a mystery, as well as an interesting case of multiple personality disorder. Meanwhile, the elections are underway, and let me just cut to the chase. Leorio was one of the leading candidates just because he punched Jean in the face. That's honestly the best moment in the entire arc. Leorio was always one of my favorite characters. Loved hearing him voiced by Matt Mercer in this remake, by the way. It's always a pleasure when he is around. It was also great seeing Hisoka again. After his absence in the Chimera Ant arc, I realized just how much I missed him. There is still so much about him that we don't know. So many of my favorite moments of Hunter x Hunter included him. He's iconic, and I think I'll miss him the most. When it's all said and done, Gon is healed, a new chairman is elected, and it's time to end this amazing story. When I finished the original anime, my top 3 disappointments were how the Orkney City arc was incomplete, how we never saw Kurapika accomplish his goal, and how Gon never found his dad. Well, here we are, at the end of all things. The Orkney City arc was completed a long time ago in the most phenomenal, perfect way. Kurapika has been MIA, seemingly found many of the Scarlet Eyes, but unfortunately, his arc is still not finished, even in the manga. I can overlook that because Gon's entire reason for becoming a hunter was for the sole purpose of finding his dad. And he found him. Their reunion on the World Tree was, well, of course, satisfying. I know the manga continues, but Kahlua and Alka are free, Leorio is becoming a doctor, Kurapika has found and is still finding Scarlet Eyes, and Gon found his dad. This was the best place to end the anime, as for someone who doesn't read manga, this ending leaves a lot to the imagination. I say this because Jean reveals, well, basically the world is Whoville, and they are quite literally little fish in a bigger pond, like a literal pond in the great big world that they're in. So yeah, take that as you will. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, look it up. Lots of interesting stuff in the manga that we'll probably never see in anime form, but that's okay. Um, but yeah, I feel very satisfied with my Hunter x Hunter experience. And with that, my Hunter x Hunter experience has officially ended. Jedi Survivor is Jedi Fallen Order, but better. Guys, Star Wars fans are being spoiled with these games. Fallen Order was a beautiful, uncharted Star Wars experience. Pretty much all of those same mechanics have been carried over to Survivor, and much like the jump from Uncharted to Uncharted 2, these staple mechanics are the same, but very polished. The parkour is seamless and even a bit more exciting in certain action-packed chase sequences. The grappling hook really does wonders, and using Marin's weird transportation magic keeps me on the edge of my seat. Force abilities have also been expanded on, including the occasional use of the iconic Jedi mind powers, which is extremely useful when we tame different creatures we can use as temporary mounts. That's what I would use it for. The same lightsaber combat styles are carried over, along with a couple of new options. The cool thing about Survivor's take on combat is that it's best to choose two to specialize in, as you can only wield two styles at a time, which restricts how you spend your skill points. This could be seen as a downside at first, but after testing all the styles out, you kind of decide which aligns better with your own fighting preferences. At that point, this whole specialization concept becomes a great part of character customization. Speaking of customization, Cal and BD get so many upgrades to their designs. Previously, you could only change Cal's poncho or BD's color. Now, Cal has a variety of hair and costume options available to find, and BD gets many cosmetic opportunities such as eyepieces as well as colors. Getting into Cal's journey a bit more, the OG squad is back. It's kind of cool how the party members can help elevate the cinematography of some fights, specifically shouting out some of Marin's badass team attacks. How am I not supposed to have a crush on her after that? A really cool experience was playing as Seer. As fun as it was during the whole invasion sequence, the experience hit so differently as we played as Jedi Master Seer, going against the one and only Darth Vader. Cal encountered him previously, but there was no way Cal could even put a dent in his helmet. Seer, she's much closer to Vader's skill. It was an actual serious fight, like, she did damage. But of course, it is written. It was a glorious death to be sure, following an epic fight. One of the highlights of the game. Vader is cool and all, but man, do not forget the astonishing villain that was Dagan Gera. Portrayed by Cody Fern, whom I have a crush on, Dagan was quite the foe to behold. With only one arm, he utilized the Force perfectly to just negate all disadvantages that could have imposed. That missing arm was in no way a handicap. I believe there are 3 boss fights with him, and the best part is that he just adds more and more moves to his arsenal with each fight. Like, he's scary and very powerful. Like, one of the most powerful Jedi/Sith I've ever seen. Honestly, he was the ultimate highlight of the game for me. His story also gave an interesting perspective to Cal. Like, honestly, how were the two so different? I really feel we downgraded when the main antagonist went from Dagan to Bode. Like, I get Bode, but you're kind of lame, like, even with your bounty hunter jetpack. But I had little interest in him pretty much the entire game beforehand, so yeah, that was a disappointing turn of events. Marin, on the other hand, she was the character I was most anxious to see. For 4 years, I've been shipping her with Cal. They only had a couple of scenes in Fallen Order, but their interactions built a ship that has officially sailed. When Grease brought up Seer and Marin, like at the very start of the game, and asked a question about Seer, and Cal gave an answer about Marin, boy, I was wide awake after that. This is what I wanted. Needless to say, Marin was the true absolute highlight of the game for me. Emo, space, wizard, assassin, and leather. I'm literally so gay for her. Jedi Survivor overall was the perfect sequel and a real solid continuation of Fallen Order. Cal's struggle with the dark side in the final act led to some great moments. The boss fights were epic and cinematic. The combat and parkour were so fun and polished. The music and screen transitions maintained the general Star Wars aesthetic. The world design was great, and the absence of fast travel once again made exploration a rich experience. I really hope there is a trilogy in the horizon, or really any Star Wars installment created by the same exact team. They just really know what they're doing. As I've done last year, as an anniversary thing for the podcast, I'm going to list my top 10 stars that I have featured on the podcast in the last year and tell you why they are my favorite. George Clooney, sexiest man in the biz, Academy-worthy actor, writer, director, and producer. George Clooney is one of Hollywood's biggest icons and has the talent to prove it. I still can't believe I've seen none of his films. I feel like I have, but I haven't. And after featuring him as a star, I've got a nice list of films of his that I can't wait to study. Michael Gambon. Harry Potter never lost the opportunity to display Britain's finest through many characters through the series. Michael Gambon as Albus Dumbledore was no different. Being such a legendary presence on stage and on screen, Gambon left behind an incredible career. It was sad to hear of his passing last year. Wands up. He is sorely missed. Ben Stiller. I saw Tropic Thunder and could not get over the ingenuity that was this comedy film. Learning of his other creative endeavors over his career as an actor, producer, writer, and director, and a legend in comedy, I might have grown up only knowing him from Night at the Museum, but I've watched many of his other films, and he should not be forgotten as a legend in the entertainment industry. Hans Zimmer. Needs no introduction. I personally put him on an equal level as John Williams in terms of being a genius at creating iconic themes and soundtracks in film, from Pirates of the Caribbean to Sherlock Holmes, Inception, Dune, The Lion King, just to name a few of my favorites. Definitely one of my favorite composers of all time. Ming-Na Wen. Hell yeah. I spent my childhood listening to her in Mulan, and ended up just falling in love with her as Agent Melinda May on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That show, other than Fitzsimmons, May was the reason to watch. I'm sorry, Coulson. Fitzsimmons and May all the way. And I am so proud of her presence in the Star Wars franchise as Fennec Shand. Disney legend, Hollywood Walk of Fame, pure icon of girl power, excellent representative of the Asian community within the entertainment industry, total badass in her own right. It's just impossible to hate her. She's awesome. Nolan North, everybody's favorite uncle. He is famously known as Nathan Drake, who himself is an iconic character, with Uncharted being absolutely revolutionary in the gaming history. Nolan North has had such a presence within nerdy culture and is such a talented voice actor that we all love to hear. I specifically loved his time on Retro Replay. Go check out those videos. He's just a cool dude. Danny Elfman. As a lifelong Tim Burton fan, life would not be the same without good old Danny. A Burton film is not complete if Danny Elfman or Colleen Atwood are not a part of it. With 90% of Tim Burton's entire filmography being exclusively composed by Danny Elfman, let the greatest collaborators continue their partnership for the rest of their days. Alan Menken, the man who grabbed Disney tight and raised it from perdition. Working amongst many other brilliant collaborators, he was at the very helm of the Disney Renaissance. All the most iconic Disney songs, he helped make them. He is the Disney Renaissance. Praise be his name. Jim Carrey. No words can describe the legacy Jim has left upon the world. Ace, Truman, Grinch, Sonic, and everything in between. He is such a demanding presence and an icon, comedic legend, like no other. Ben Diskin. Number one star is none other than number one himself. Benjamin Diskin. I'm sorry, but he's just simply my favorite voice actor. I've been going through the Kingdom Hearts series again lately, and rewatching young Xehanort's first scenes made me so unbelievably hyped. It's Ben effing Diskin, man. He's so talented, very much worthy of the Emmy he has won. And when I go through a game, anime, or cartoon that he's in, oftentimes his characters end up being amongst my favorite. I have literally spent my whole life hearing his voice, from my childhood with codename Kids Next Door, to my adolescence with Kingdom Hearts, to my adulthood with basically everything else. His voice is such a comfort, and I love him so much. So much.
That's it for this week. Be sure to follow this podcast, and please follow my Twitter and blog at Hollis Films to follow my journey experiencing the entertainment industry's greatest stories. And let me know what you've been fangirling over this week. Thank you for joining me, and I'll talk to you again next week.